I get frustrated when I see most job advice for autistic people because I just don't think it's helpful. I'm autistic and I've had a lot of failure and a lot of success in my career. I got fired from a job at a marketing agency and I founded my own marketing agency. I got rejected from graduate schools that didn't believe an autistic person could ever become a psychologist, but I did ultimately become a psychologist, and now I get to help a lot of people. So I've struggled, but ultimately I ended up pretty successful. And when I look at a lot of the career advice that's out there, I just think that none of it would have helped me. It wouldn't have helped me back when I was struggling, and it wasn't really what I did to end up finding success. So, I want to share the advice with you that I think can actually help if you're an autistic person. These strategies might not work for everybody, but my hope is that if you're struggling in your career or your job hunt, you'll find something in this video that you can use. To be clear, this isn't a video about traditional career success. I don't really care if you get a prestigious job that pays you $1 million. This is a video about life fulfillment. How do you find a job that helps you live a good life as an autistic person? This means a job that pays you enough to be okay, treats you with respect, and gives you what you need to avoid being burned out or overwhelmed. That's what I'm going to help you find in this video. My advice here is divided into two strategies. They're kind of two parts of a whole, so I recommend you stick with a whole video to get the best value. The first strategy is to build on your strengths instead of worrying about your weaknesses. If you look at most job advice for autistic people, it focuses on fixing your weaknesses. You're not good at job interviews, so practice answering these interview questions. You're not good at office small talk, so study these conversation tips. You're not good at reading social cues, so here's a list of facial expressions for you to memorize. This is a trap. Don't get me wrong. You can improve on your weaknesses, and it's okay to spend some time doing that. I wrote a book on social skills. Clearly, I believe it's worth studying the stuff that doesn't come naturally to you. But when you make fixing your weaknesses your primary focus, it leads you to a dead end. The problem is that even if you work hard on fixing your weaknesses, you're probably still not going to be as good in that area as somebody for whom it comes naturally. You can practice job interviews all day long, but you're probably still going to struggle compared to a neurotypical person who's just naturally charismatic. Plus, focusing on your weakness can often lead you deeper into autistic burnout and masking. If you're like most autistic people, you have painful memories of being rejected. I certainly do. And it can be tempting to think that if you just fix your weaknesses or hide them, then people won't reject you. But pressuring yourself to always be perfect is a recipe for burnout, and pressuring yourself to hide your weaknesses is a recipe for masking. Instead of trying to fix your weaknesses, the best way to get a good job is to build on your strengths. When you look at really successful people, this is the strategy they often followed. According to Wikipedia, Taylor Swift's first albums were criticized by reviewers who thought her vocals were weak and strained. She could have listened to this criticism and focused on improving her singing voice, but that would have been a trap. Taylor Swift's songwriting, not her singing, was always her greatest strength. That's what made people fall in love with her music. So she spent her time writing her songs instead of working on fixing her voice, and that led to the global stardom she has today. Obviously, there's a difference between a weak singing voice and a brain that works differently than the people around you, but the strategy is the same. Focusing on your weaknesses keeps you stuck, building on your strengths moves you forward. So here's what you need to do. The first step is to figure out what your strengths are. You discover your strengths by looking at your skills. A skill is what you are able to do, and a strength is what allows you to do it. Writing the script for this video is a skill. It's a thing I can do. I'm able to write a good script because I have strengths in coming up with ideas and sharing them with other people. In order to figure out your skills, so you can ultimately figure out your strengths, ask yourself, what is easy for me that tends to be hard for other people? What's something I love so much that I've spent a lot of time getting better at it? And what do I do that other people tend to compliment me on? You might want to pause the video and actually take a few minutes to think through these questions or ask somebody who knows you well. When you do, you'll end up with a list of skills. Then you can discover the strength underneath those skills. For instance, maybe you're a really good listener and your friends always compliment you on your listening. But what makes you a good listener? Well, the skill of being a good listener requires strengths like curiosity and caring about other people. Or you might realize that you're really good at knitting. To be a good knitter, you need to be creative, have good small motor dexterity, and be patient. Then you can figure out how those strengths map onto a job where you can be successful. For instance, knitting is not a very useful skill in getting a job. There's not a lot of jobs for professional knitters, as far as I know. But the strengths that make you a good knitter will help you in a lot of jobs. If you're great at knitting, you'd probably also be great at being a dental hygienist or a pastry chef. Your strengths in creativity, dexterity, and patience that helped you become a great knitter will also help you in those jobs. If you're a good listener, your curiosity and care for others might make you a good journalist or a good therapist. It'll still take work, of course. You need to put in the work to learn the specific skills of the job. But if you target the right job, then your strengths will make it much, much easier for you to learn those skills and be really good at the work that you do. Obviously, this advice might be applicable to anyone, no matter their neurotype, but this is especially important for autistic people because we have what is called a spiky profile in our strengths and weaknesses. As an autistic person, in some areas, I can perform at an extremely high level. And in other areas, I might perform worse than a typical middle schooler. In other words, the gap between our strengths and our weaknesses is often much wider than it would be for a neurotypical person. And so we can't afford to just be average at everything. We need to find the jobs that line up with our strengths so we can be really good at the most important skills, and it won't matter if we aren't that good at the other stuff. Of course, I don't want you to just ignore your weaknesses, and that's where the second strategy comes in. The second strategy is to realize that what you often call weaknesses are actually just unmet needs. We can understand this by using one of my favorite metaphors, which is the polar bear in the desert. If you took a polar bear from the Arctic and you plopped it in the middle of the desert, that polar bear would have a lot of weaknesses, right? Its claws, which are designed to run on the ice, would be clumsy on the sand. Its thick coat that keeps it warm in the winter would give it heat stroke in the desert, etc. And theoretically, the polar bear could try to fix its weaknesses. It could try to teach itself how to walk on the sand or start shaving its fur so it doesn't get quite so hot. But the best solution would be for the polar bear to just get some air conditioning. The bear doesn't need to change, the bear needs a better environment. This explains the neurodivergent experience in the professional world. Most jobs are built by neurotypical people according to neurotypical needs. And so the needs that you have as an autistic person go unmet. I told you before that I was fired from my job at a marketing agency. After I was fired, I got a job at a new marketing agency and they loved me. I was the top performer on their team, and when I ultimately left to go to grad school to become a psychologist, they gave me a parting gift that said Dr. Daniel Wendler to encourage me as I sought my doctorate. The marketing work was the same. I was the same. The difference is that the new agency had a much healthier culture where I was given the flexibility and support that I needed. I was put in a better environment. Of course, a healthy workplace culture benefits everyone, even neurotypical people. But even when a workplace culture is unhealthy, it often meets more needs for neurotypical people than it does for autistic people. And as a result, you struggle. In order to connect with your coworkers, you might need structured social interactions so you know how you're supposed to participate. But if the only option available is unstructured small talk, then your needs are not met, and of course you're going to struggle. Or if in order to think clearly, you need advance notice and time to prepare, well, then if the only option available is getting pulled into a meeting with no advance notice, then your needs are not met. And so again, you're going to struggle. So the solution here is not to try to fix yourself because you're not broken. Most of the things that you currently see as weaknesses are just unmet needs. And so the solution is to get in an environment where your needs can be met. There's three ways to accomplish this. The first way is to try to find a workplace that meets your neurodivergent needs. This is easier said than done, but it's not impossible. Several organizations have rolled out specific programs for neurodivergent team members, including big names like Wells Fargo, Microsoft, SAP, and Walgreens. You can also see if there's any companies hiring in your area that have specific programs to help you succeed as an autistic employee, or look for nonprofits that help autistic people get jobs. Often they know the local employers that might be able to give you a good work experience. The second way is to adjust your working environment yourself. Again, this can be easier said than done because there's limits to the kind of adjustments that your employer will allow. But in many workplaces, there are some steps you can take to set up the environment to better meet your needs. For instance, if you work in an office that has an overwhelming sensory environment, you may be able to get approval to wear noise canceling headphones when you work. If you don't have any friends at work, you might be able to start a neurodivergent employee resource group where neurodivergent people can gather and support one another. If you work in a retail environment and you struggle with talking to customers, you might see if your manager can assign you primarily to stocking shelves or other tasks that suit you better and give you a better environment. And then the third way to create a better environment is to work for yourself. This is the biggest example of easier said than done because building a business is really tough. But if you are your own boss, then you have total control over your working environment and you can create an environment that maximizes your ability to do great work without burnout. This is ultimately the pathway I took for myself. I've started three different businesses, and they've grown to the point where 2 years ago, I was able to quit my job and work 100% for myself. There are a lot of struggles along the way, so it's certainly not easy or right for everyone, but for some autistic people, it can be the best option for finding a fulfilling career. To be clear, learning how to become an autistic entrepreneur is complex, so it's well beyond the scope of this video. But if it's something you'd like to learn, leave a comment and let me know. If there's enough interest, I can put out another video on that topic. These two strategies are the clearest explanation I could come up with for the career success I've had in my life. Over time, I've identified my core strengths and I found opportunities that let me use these strengths as much as possible. And I figured out the environments that I struggle in, and I've moved towards environments that work for me, first by finding employers that treated me better, and ultimately by working for myself and building the exact environment that works for me. I'm not promising that following these strategies will make it easy for you to get a great job as an autistic person. Everything I recommend takes time, and even if you do everything perfectly, you're still dealing with a job market that sucks and a lot of companies that don't really care about their employees. Also, if you're burned out from the job hunt or a soul crushing job, you won't have a lot of energy left over to work on this. Even if it's not easy, it can get easier. Tiny steps add up over time, and you are stronger than you think. If you work on this just a little bit at a time, taking tiny steps to learn more about your strengths, build a skill that uses a strength, or adjust your environment to better meet your needs, over time you can create a remarkable difference in your professional life. And remember, you don't have to fight for the traditional success that our culture tells you you're supposed to want. You don't need a prestigious job or a big paycheck to be a good person or have a good life. You just need a job where you can do good work and be treated well. And I hope this video can help you get there. Before I sign off, a quick favor to ask. This video was honestly a lot of work to put together compared to the short videos that I usually make. If you found it helpful, please leave a comment and let me know. That'll really encourage me to make more long videos, especially if you tell me what about this video helped you. Also, please do make sure to like and follow to get more of my stuff in your feed, and maybe forward this on to an autistic friend of yours to encourage them. Thanks for watching. Dr. Dan, signing off.